Hello, welcome to my week 3 presentation on characteristics of successful mediators as presented by Landsberger in a textbook. My name is Octavio Ramirez Lopez. This for class NPA 545 Conflict Resolution and Labor Negotiation. This for Professor James Curtis at California Baptist University. Okay, so my presentation, I'll be discussing how Landsberger's work was introduced in our textbook. Then I'll dive deeper into his work as it was cited on the reference page on page 225 and on. Then I identify someone else's work who I'll be talking about how Landsberger's work was used in this person's new research study regarding characteristics that successful mediators possess. Landsberger's work was introduced in our textbook in chapter 4 titled Mediation. It's on page 77, and that's where the book starts talking about how some of the characteristics or core values that successful mediators should possess in order to successfully assist negotiators coming to an agreement. So Henry Landsberger, in his work titled Final Report on Research Project in Mediation, he went further into discussing his research and also how he identified those characteristics that successful mediators possess. So he identified a group of mediators whom were identified as successful. So they were administered some psychological tests to identify some of those characteristics, and also he worked with some people who did some other rating on those characteristics to see which mediators had them, and those raters consisted of employees, attorneys, union officials, and some colleagues as well. So he came to find out that the characteristics identified in this successful mediators were the ability to be an appropriate the ability to have appropriate sense of humor, also the ability to act unobtrusively in conflict, also having the ability to create perception of being with the negotiators, and also being concerned about their well-being. And some of the other characteristics also identified were persistence and patience, and also being knowledgeable in the subject area in which this mediator is assisting negotiators coming to an agreement on. All right, so Landsberger's work was cited by David Brookmeyer and Frank Sistrunk in their work titled The Effects of Perceived Ability and Impartiality of Mediators and Time Pressure on Negotiations. So they used Landsberger's work to kind of just let you know that a mediator is not really effective based on these characteristics, but it's effective based on attribution theory, for example, how they're being perceived, face saving, how they try to, either mediator or negotiator try to keep that reputation, and field theory, some other factors that affect the negotiation process or the person's ability or willingness to come into an agreement. So he basically stated that yes, these mediators can have these characteristics presented by Landsberger, but however, that does not necessarily mean that this mediator is going to be effective. So if this mediator is being perceived as being high in ability to assist negotiators, and also high in ability to be impartial and not take sides, so this person is going to assist these negotiators make this agreement based on how they're being perceived. In addition, David and Frank stated that face savings, so both parties, both negotiators, trying to keep a reputation, even though they're trying to come into an agreement, they don't want to seem as weak. They don't want to just cave in. They want to negotiate on something that they're going to have what they need or want, and both sides are trying to get the most that they can get out of each other or out of this agreement. So face saving is going to affect this negotiation as well. And finally, David and Frank also stated that field theory also affects this negotiation. So it's not just this characteristics that Landsberger was talking about. It's also, the situation, the environment, the negotiator's ability to make a decision, some factors like political, social, financial. So basically, what they're stating that is basically that this mediators not they just don't need those characteristics, which even though they are a plus, but if this mediators are not perceived as highly effective, if face saving kind of works as it's almost an obstacle for them to keep to make that negotiation, or even if there's other factors that impede for this negotiation to occur, then these characteristics are not really making this mediator effective. So the person's effectiveness is affected by attribution, how they're being perceived, by face saving, both negotiators and mediators trying to keep that reputation, and field theory, or the person's or being or other factors affecting the situation in this agreement process. Alright, so this concludes my presentation. These are just my references, and I'm just looking forward to seeing you guys as well, and seeing what we can learn from each other. Thank you again. Have a great weekend.